there's not a lot of people getting into the water industry on purpose, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge we're going to have here is to change that mindset and to, sort of convince the senior management that this is a worthwhile effort and that, technology is really, really where we're going
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah. I want to thank you for joining us in another edition of the 21st Century Engineer podcast. As you know, the vision and mission of this podcast is to help with professional development of those in mid-career and earlier, for the most part, though certainly us old dinosaurs and gray hairs and some kind no hairs can join in and occasionally learn something as well. We have a really interesting conversation today. I ran across Emma Quail kind of tangentially through a number of things that she was doing. We've actually never met until today. And as such, it's going to be an insightful, interesting opportunity for me, and I hope for her as well. And of course, as always, I hope that when we conclude today, that you'll have found the time you've invested in this conversation to be of value, to return dividends in your professional and personal life. Emma, welcome. Thanks for agreeing to do
Thank
this.
you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no. If you would, kind of for the audience and for me to some degree, could you kind of give us a background, an overview of what you're about, who you're about, what you're doing, what the company is, et cetera?
Yes, of course. So I'm Emma Quail, originally from Ireland. I moved to the US about 16 years ago now, so it's went pretty quickly. But I started my career, I did a master's in environmental science. I came out of college and I really didn't know what the next steps were, to be honest. And
You're
somehow,
not alone.
and I
We're all
think
that way.
if you speak to a lot of people in the water industry, they'll tell you, I don't know how that happened. So it's pretty much like that. I was working with a water utility in Ireland, and I was pretty much doing a lot of the field work, getting my hands dirty, data and analytics, that sort of thing. And then I relocated to the US 16 years ago, as I said, and I got into more commercial roles. So still in the non-revenue water space, but very focused on leak detection. So that's really where my expertise lies. And I love it. It's in my blood. I'm going to be here for a long time, I hope. But the pathway has led me to a company called Ferguson. I know a lot of people in the industry are very familiar with Ferguson because they are the biggest plumbing and water supply company to water utilities. I've been here just over a year now, and I'm part of the technology solutions group of Ferguson. So this really is a new initiative for Ferguson because everybody knows them for, pipes, valves, fittings, meters. We've got a huge portfolio of solutions. So we are now bringing in more of a technology portfolio to complement those other solutions and, other technologies and bring them all together. So we partner with a lot of key vendors in this space, and we really want to provide the best in class, the best, most expansive solution to our customers. And I think we're doing that today. We've got some really, really exciting things going on.
And that's really what we wanted to talk about today. I don't mean to be trite in saying a valve is a valve. It's an old engineering term about, well, you're not exactly looking that up in a pump manual. The pumps are certainly different.
Yes, they are.
But at the end of the day, there's a certain sameness associated with it.
Correct.
You're talking about, I wanted to kind of ask you to focus in, at least initially, on the leak issue, because it is so significant. Personally and nationally, we recognize in the civil infrastructure profession that leak detection, resolving the non-revenue side, is extremely important. I mean, I hope the listeners recognize that, and take a deep breath. In some places, losing 40% of your product is an acceptable loss. I
Yeah.
mean, where in the world would a manufacturing a business be able to produce material, an automobile, let's say, and lose 40% of it in a nonprofit sense? It's just crazy. Even
It is
20%.
crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. I know my background and where some of those are, but I'm more interested in the work that Ferguson and what you've been advancing and sharing in a variety of different forums, conferences, online.
Mhm.
So, what do you see? What have you found the magnitude of this problem to be?
So we can't ignore it. We've got an aging infrastructure, but we have about 240,000 main breaks a year as a result of that. But we have this huge funding shortfall in terms of water mains replacement, so that we can't actually keep up with the rate of replacement. So the AWWA recommend about 1% every year of your network, but that's just not sustainable. It's not doable for a utility to do. So the fact that we're not able to rehabilitate or sustain the water distribution network, we're obviously going to have problems that are just getting bigger and bigger. So that the magnitude of the problem, it's there, it's not going away, and I think that it's growing if we're not able to address it with replacement. As you said, a lot of utilities are losing 20, 30, 40% of their water, which is absolutely true. That's the average non-revenue water in the US is between about 20 to 30%. And that really is not acceptable. Utilities should be looking at their utility as a business, really. I mean, you don't see Budweiser or
Exactly.
Coca-Cola
Exactly.
losing 30% of their product. So, we need to start thinking a bit more from a business standpoint. So until that happens, I think that the problem, it's not going away. It is actually getting worse. However, the good news is that there are technologies to help us sustain the network. We've got additional funding from different places. We've got we have smarter infrastructure to help us solve the problem. So that's the good news. But yeah, it's something that we just can't ignore, and more needs to be done. We need to change attitudes. That's one problem that I see. We need to have more regulation in place. We need to have more drivers there to actually address the problem of leakage.
Well, the part of the problem, and again, going back to the AWWA recommendation, let's
Mhm.
take a independent look at the number and recognize that in the early 70s, we were looking at leakage initially, and we were going through it, but a lot of this water infrastructure that we're dealing with has been in the ground for 50 years or
Mhm.
more, some of it 100 years. And
Mhm.
and it had a design life, arguably how that was calculated, but they had a design life of 50 years. So
Yeah.
100% theoretically, arguably 100% or virtually 100% of our infrastructure has reached the end of its design life. And if it's going to
Correct.
take
Yeah.
4%, it's going to take us another 20 years to replace it all. Um, I can imagine this is going to be a big thing to deal with. The other side, and I applaud you for mentioning it. It really is attitude. When I was young in this industry, that could have been yesterday, but it wasn't. The idea was, again, 20% leakage was a approval standard written in the specs. Brand
Yeah.
new water systems being put online had a 20% leakage. That was acceptable. Why? Well,
Yeah. That's
materials
crazy.
part of it, construction techniques part of it, but I also and you made me think of it. I really think it was attitude. People think water's free, and so
Totally.
if I lose 20%, who cares? But it's not free.
Yeah. And unfortunately, utilities are a bit, I would say, averse to new technology because they have the perception that they've got lots of water, it's not costing them anything, blah blah blah, but they don't actually see the return on investing on a leak detection project, for example.
Right.
But I've seen cases where one leak can actually pay the project off immediately. It just depends on the size of the leak and obviously the cost of the water. That's a huge consideration when you talk about return on investment on a leak detection program. So Yeah. It's just
Well,
it's definitely a mindset thing. But again, going back to the drivers, there has to be something driving it. And water scarcity is one of those things. So yeah, that there's gotta be more emphasis on it and more awareness and more education and all about changing those attitudes.
and that's why I wanted to engage you in this podcast,
Mhm.
because you and Ferguson are pushing the envelope. You are
Yeah,
providing the education. You are advocating for doing better. And my expectation is the people that are listening to us right now want to do better as well. They want to be
totally.
part,
Yeah.
they want to be part of the change to make sure that things are better. Uh, Regardless where you are in the world, we can do better. And so I guess really along this line, you've been doing this. Ferguson's been doing this for some time now.
Yeah.
Are you beginning to see progress? Do you think things are changing, or are you fighting a losing battle the way things are today?
Well, look, I've been in the industry for a long time now, and I'm still fighting the
Yeah.
fight, put it that way. I've come from a totally different landscape, coming from the UK or Ireland. They have a lot of regulation in place to kind of push this forward. They've got older infrastructure, so they really are working hard on
By hundreds
addressing
of
these.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, for years. So
Yeah.
I think it's been a bit of a slower adoption rate here in the US. I did notice coming here that there wasn't the expertise in place, and that's not a I'm not being critical. I'm just my observation. There wasn't the expertise in place for leak detection. There just wasn't. It just didn't seem to be a priority. However, I think the fact that the infrastructure is in such bad shape that we can't ignore it anymore. There is regulation in some states throughout the US, Georgia, California, Texas. There is more emphasis, more awareness. I mean, you'll see at conferences there are a lot more papers on leak detection practice, non-revenue
Right.
water audits, that sort of thing. So there is increased awareness. As far
Right.
as technology adoption goes, it can be quite slow. There are lots of different startups coming into the market, even since I started, and they're kind of flooding the market. And I think utilities are a bit overwhelmed by that because there are so many different solutions to choose from. Um,
With
so
also the technology, the resistance to learning how to do things a
yeah,
different way, presumably a
there's
better way,
resistance.
but at least a different way, is something that's oftentimes resisted in the utility business.
Yeah,
And it's not just water. I mean, people are still hanging power lines on poles, even though we
right.
know that it makes much more sense to bury them and protect them. But
Yeah,
we do it. Or water lines are buried at a certain depth in a certain way, which promotes leaks rather than prevents leaks. And
yeah,
it's the way you get that. It's the way we've always done it, to which you want to
yeah.
respond, and that's the very reason why we have to change.
And it's also the reason why we need, a very layered approach to leak detection. It's actually quite a complex process because a lot of people think of leak detection as some guy walking down the street with a set of headphones and a listening stick, which to some degree we still need that. But it is we're very much in pilot mode in the US. There's all these new technologies coming onto the market, and utilities are wary. They're also not familiar with them. They don't really know what to do.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we very much are in pilot mode, and I think that's been hindering the adoption rate, if you'd like,
yep,
because they're not sure about it, and they do see that it doesn't have a very quick return up front. They're paying for sensors or a company to come in and do leak detection, and they're not necessarily seeing that upfront gain really.
yeah.
So yeah, that really hinders adoption in my mind. But pilots are not a bad thing. I think we need to go through this process before things get better. But there
Well,
is more awareness about it for sure.
one of the things we've talked about in our company is in my companies plural has been the
Yeah,
idea of the breach of trust that the industry has experienced in the past. There have been a lot of snake oil salesmen coming in, and so
totally.
there's that distrust component. The joke I always told was that in the segment of the industry I worked in, I'd be sitting down talking with a potential client, an engineer, a municipality, an industry, and they'd come back with, "Well, show me where it works in this state."
Totally.
Like,
That's
I've got
that's
I've got
very
a thousand,
familiar to me.
I've got 100 operations in the state adjacent to you. What's different about water over here or bacteria over here
Exactly.
that I need to know about? It's like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
totally. Well,
but
I will give a bit of a shameless plug to Ferguson. We are very big on customer support and, the partners that we actually bring into our
right,
portfolio. So that's very important to us. And I
yeah,
think that trust really goes a long way. We have customers all over the country, and so bringing in this new technology is exciting to them. They trust us, so that really helps with the adoption rate.
it does, and recognizing the importance of that trust will hold Ferguson and what you do, what the
Yeah,
company's doing, to a standard to ensure that there isn't a breach of trust. And if there is
yeah,
a, and if
absolutely.
there isn't, I'm going to frame it as an inadvertent error that occurs, then
Yeah,
it's one that you step back up and rectify as quickly as you can in full and honest disclosure. So that's all part
yeah,
of it.
for sure.
Let me go back to something else you said, kind of segue to the again the municipal side of this thing. Do you think municipalities, the water industry, put in a different context, is finally beginning to recognize the cost and value of what it is they do in terms of their operations, or are they beginning to see what it is that they're losing and recognizing that they need to be looking at ways of compensating or offsetting those losses?
Yeah, so just in terms of leakage, I mean, no, I could say non-revenue water, but non-revenue water has many arms and legs, right? It, it,
Right.
it includes apparent loss and real loss and meter discrepancies, and then you have your leakage, the
Theft.
leakage side of it. But when you look at leakage alone, there's a number of different ways it impacts a utility, not just directly through lost water or revenue, but utilities are very much in firefighting mode. They're very reactive, and it's actually putting a burden on their manpower, their resources, operational efficiencies, energy, treatment costs. So there's all of those things that come into play in terms of impact and how it affects them. The
Hmm.
other thing they need to think about is carbon footprint. I don't think that's something that comes to mind.
Yeah.
All those
Yes.
energy and treatment costs are creating more carbon emissions, right? And
Right.
we're seeing that more and more through the AWWA and the water audit, the Water Loss Control Committee. That is becoming an initiative, is to look at how leakage actually impacts your carbon footprint. Because
Yeah.
there's more energy required to feed leaks. It's putting more stress in the network, and that increases carbon emissions. So it's from an environmental impact, it's not a positive thing.
Right.
And then you have negative customer perceptions and media. So you need to take that into account. But you know, from if you look at leaks from another perspective, and this might sound strange, but leaks can actually present an opportunity as well to a water utility, because it is the cheapest source of available water, because it's already been treated, pumped, etc., etc. It
Yeah.
just needs to be recovered, and about 75% of it is actually recoverable with the right technologies and the right approach.
Right.
And that message needs to be resonated, especially in areas of water scarcity. Because they're investing in building storage facilities and desal plants, when they really should look beyond that and focus on the water that already exists. It's already theirs. So, leakage is a bad thing. It has a lot of cost impact and a lot of other negative impacts on a utility, but it's water that already exists, and we should use it. We should recover it.
I agree. And I think you make an excellent point in that in most cases, if not all cases, it's a whole lot cheaper to address the leakage issue than expand the
Exactly.
treatment facility to offset to meet the need. So
Correct.
it just really works well. The analogy, Emma, that I'll throw out, you may or may not be aware of it. A couple decades ago, in Nevada, there was a conversation about raising the Hoover Dam to collect more water because the growth in principally the Las Vegas area, but Reno as well, and or the service area for the dam and the water facility. And the discussion evolved into, for reasons that I won't get into, rather than raising the dam and all the capital costs associated with that, why don't we invest in reducing water use? And so
Mm-hmm.
they promoted putting in xenoscaping to eliminate yard water watering, put in
Yeah.
local vegetation so you weren't having to water plants that weren't indigenous. And at the end of the day, if you stop and look at the Hoover Dam right now, if they'd increased it by 100 feet, it wouldn't have made any difference because the dam's at historic lows. The water impounded is at historic lows. It would have been a complete
Mhm.
waste of money that would resolve none of the problems.
Right.
With climate change that we're having to deal with today, we need to recognize we need to be more frugal with those resources. And I applaud Ferguson and for the work it's doing and the work you're advocating collectively as a family to address this problem head on to try and get ahead of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there are multiple approaches,
Yeah.
and I have some that come to my mind. On an earlier podcast, I had a good friend who came in and talked about using digital twins to predict
Mm-hmm.
and map where losses were and how to manage systems and a better to. I really do both not only preventive but progressive maintenance on facilities.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate? You feel comfortable elaborating on what some of those other ideas might be?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I've been in the leak detection space for quite a while. I've seen the technology space evolve. And I guess that's why I love the job I do today because I am speaking to multiple technology companies. We're vetting technology. It's really something that I love to do. But, I've really seen changes. We've started off with very traditional approaches in terms of correlators, listening sticks, which I don't think are going to go away by any means. I mean, leak detection is very complex, and we still need that level of human intervention. Technology's, only as good as the information we have. We need to understand the assets, their condition, what pipe materials we have on the ground, the pipe configuration, all those things. But we still need that level of human intervention. And as I said, there are a lot of different solutions coming out on the market to support that. But there really is no one size fits all technology because of all those system variations and the different environments that the network exists. So that they really require a faceted approach. So, for example, if you've got a PVC system, it may not be conducive to acoustic leak detection. So you can bring other things in like um, inline leak detection technologies or satellite things like that. So there's different solutions, but you can and they should be used in tandem with each other because they're usually all complementary. But it just really depends on your system, on pipe configuration, on the environment. All of those things come into play when you're making an investment in leak detection technology. But what I would say is, they all have their secret sauce. They're tools in a toolbox at the end of the day, and we shouldn't look at each other as competitors. We should bring all those technologies together. But
As,
understanding your
as
network is
collaborators.
critical. Totally, we need to collaborate with each other, and that's what we do here at Ferguson. We do have multiple partners. We have complementary solutions. We're not married to any one technology company. We understand that water utilities have different needs, and so that's why we need to provide those layered solutions, if you like.
Yep, right.
um yeah.
Yeah, the audio detection, I guess, was if not the first, one of the first approaches.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
it was impacted by things such as the nature of the leak, depth of the leak,
Size of
salt
the lake. Yeah.
strata, surround ambient
Pressure.
noise,
Yeah.
yeah, the list goes on and on and on. So it could do some of the job, but then we're missing things. And of course, the transportation people always say that we use their highways and their highway easements as a way to as not so early detection when a water main blows up or a highway gets washed away. So obviously, somewhat humorous in their intent, but when we're dealing with with this system, I think you make an excellent point. I know you make an excellent point. Excuse me. That different systems, different materials, different configurations, all have unique opportunities for leakage.
Correct.
And so, in as much as there are unique opportunities for leakage, there have to be unique opportunities to detect those leaks. And
Yeah.
and and it is a family approach, and it has to be targeted in the same sense. So some techniques you would look at and will work quite well. Other techniques you'd look at and go, "You're wasting your time. Let's try
Yeah.
this." Yeah.
And
Uh,
it
well,
also,
okay,
sorry,
I'm
go
going to
ahead.
drag you down a hole in a second. Go ahead and finish your thought.
No, I was just going to say, it's not even always technology. There are other approaches that I'm very familiar with from where I came from in terms of district metered areas and, minimum night flow analysis. There are other things that you can do, you know, as
Uh,
well as bringing in those technologies. So it's definitely, it's all about taking the right approach, but it's really, at the end of the day, it's all about being proactive. And a lot of water utilities are not proactive today. So, they're running around firefighting and, they're focused on the surfacing leaks, but really the technology should be used in a proactive way. And that's what we're really that's the message we're trying to convey. Um, but yeah, sorry, what were you going to say?
I don't have to now. You just said it. That is exactly the point that I was headed for. In my early days, back in the dark ages, it was nighttime flow detection was the first indicator.
Totally. Yeah.
You're sitting there at your station monitoring the elevation in your elevated tank and your water
Yeah.
production, and you're going, we obviously have flow out of here. Everybody's in bed. What's going on?
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
somebody gets up. I worked on one system not too far from where I live that in the early days, they could tell you if you had a good movie back in the days of three channels and no
You can
cable.
see.
Yeah, people would get up and go flush the toilet at the
Yeah.
commercials. And if it was a good movie, if it wasn't a good movie, they were up and down all the time. I mean,
Super
literally
Bowl.
just that simple.
I used to watch the water consumption at the break at Super Bowl, and yeah, you can see
Yes.
that big consumption peak.
Yeah.
But it's all about flow analysis.
Or
Is
in the
all about
case of Ireland, it'd be a matter of the
St.
World Cup
Patrick's Day.
and one of the two periods.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, but I know we're being light with it, but the point is for those in the utility industry that might be listening, or hopefully for those who want to communicate with the people in the utility industry, the providers, the producers, the municipalities, it doesn't have to be technologically complex.
No,
And some of this work can be done by existing crews just by thinking logically about, first off, determining the magnitude of the problem or if you have a problem, and then where does the problem exist. These aren't complex issues. They're just
yeah,
complex only in the sense that the nature of the system or the time it takes. But it can be done, and then you move to the next level, and then it takes experts like Ferguson and others who are working in this field to to step in and augment that.
correct.
It's data. It's really
It's
getting the data
data.
and understanding what the data says, and recognizing that no one technology will fit all solutions, which you've said
Correct.
several times up to this point.
Yeah.
We're getting to the point where we're going to have to start kind of moving towards the end of the conversation. I did want to talk about what you see as, or what your experiences have been uh, on behalf of those young professionals that are listening to us, what you see they may have to face in order to get municipalities, or for that matter, the companies, the municipalities they work for, the industry they work for, what do they need to be able to do in order to affect change?
Yeah, I would say younger people coming in, and this is no criticism to either me and you, but they're a little bit more tech savvy than us, and they've grown up with technology.
I'm
So
not insulted.
I'm insulting myself here, but
No, you're not.
um,
I'm older than you
a
are.
lot of a lot of the technology companies are making things more user friendly to appeal to unskilled operators. There's things like AI that are coming in to automate processes to reduce labor. Um, but there's no getting away from the fact that we still do need that level of human intervention and human expertise, because the technology is only as good as it is, but we still need someone to come in and validate that technology. And that is the guy with the ground mic and the headphones. And there's not a lot of those people around, and usually they are younger people coming into the water industry, but it's a great learning experience. I mean, me myself, I started in the field. I was one of those young people once, and that technical background really stood by me further along in my career. So I would say, if you're getting into the industry, don't be disheartened. That is a really valuable learning experience for you in the future. But the technology is not designed either to take anybody's job away. It's also, it's something to support how the utility are operating to make them more efficient. So there is a bit of that attitude that needs to change as well. So I think younger people will understand that because they are more tech savvy. But again, it's all about changing that mindset and, bringing some energy into the industry and invigorating the industry, because that's what it need. We need more young people coming behind us. And unfortunately, I don't see that. There's not a lot of people getting into the water industry on purpose, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think the biggest challenge we're going to have here is to change that mindset, and to sort of convince the senior management that this is a worthwhile effort, and that technology is really, really where we're going
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah. I think you've hit on, and we've covered it a couple of different ways, but I guess reiterate or amplify it. A lot of times it's the lack of inertia, or the sedimentary nature of upper administration to just leave things the way they are,
Yeah.
and being able to convince upper management that there is a better way, that there is an opportunity, uh, is I would hope the goal that the young professional sets for themselves. That's going to
Mhm.
require them to embrace the technology when others are shunning it for fear or laziness. I mean that sincerely. It's just I mentioned to Chad earlier that uh, I get to a point where I just don't want to learn another computer language. I don't want to learn another system.
There is that.
Yeah.
And
So let
utilities have
somebody else
so
learn it.
many data
Recognize
streams.
that they have the expertise. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're going to have to become that subject area experts, a term I use on the podcast an awful lot. They need to become a subject area expert in this field, and there's challenges and there's rewards associated with it. At the same time, they need to take on a leadership position. You don't have to
Hmm.
have a title of a leader, as one famous author puts it. You don't have to have a title of a leader to be a leader.
To be one. Yeah.
Mark Sanborn's the author. So Mark, you've got credit for that one. One of the variety of people that I read and have been mentored by, not directly, but mentored by. I think it's a really exciting time. It's not unlike the time it was when I got into this business, because there's
Yeah.
so many ways, so much need, so many ways of having impact. Um, they just need to be willing. The young professional needs to be willing to do it,
Yeah.
and your voice helps advocate that, sharing, taking Ferguson's message forward, taking your vision forward into things like this podcast, and again, conferences, uh, business meetings, and sharing openly, trying to, as you said just a few minutes ago, educate people as to
Yeah.
what the
That's what it's
realities
about.
are, what the opportunities are, financial and otherwise. And I thank you for it. I mean, you're doing a great job. I really
I
do
don't
appreciate.
sugarcoat things, do I?
Well, so too many people are diabetic. Sugar coating's not a positive answer, or however. I mean, we really need just true, honest answers, and we need
Correct.
frankness, but we also need that trust to know that what's being communicated has been vetted, and that it has been proven technology. It doesn't have to be done in my neighborhood to be proven. It just has to be
Correct.
proven
Yeah.
and documented, and that takes sometimes independent vetting. I
Yeah.
know in my business, when in my company that I had some time back, we actually brought in consulting engineers to evaluate the process we were doing so that they could then attest to the fact that what we said we were doing is what we were doing.
Hmm.
Because once you're doing it, everybody knows it. But
Yeah.
but you got to get somebody to be willing to let you try, and that takes either a lot of faith, a lot of luck, or a lot of
Yeah.
desperation. I hope nobody
Yeah.
gets that desperate.
What I would say is to water utilities that are listening, there are so many solutions out there. Just make sure that you're getting the proper guidance and that that solution that you're investing in is actually the right solution for you.
Right.
I've seen technology being sold to water utilities who don't have resources and manpower to support it. And that's always a problem because it sits on the shelf, right? Nobody wants to see that happen when they could have spent the money elsewhere. But
Right.
really get that guidance, get that trusted advisor to help you with that investment. Because budgets are not readily available these days.
And don't be afraid to ask for help. I
Correct.
mentioned earlier there's things you can do, but sometimes there are things you can't do. So sometimes you just have to
Yeah.
call on the experts. And obviously, Ferguson's one of the experts, as are you. To wrap us up today, I'll give you kind of an opportunity to. What are your last thoughts? Anything you thought of that in our conversation that hasn't been amplified or a light hasn't been shown on sufficiently in your perspective?
No, not at all. I think we've covered quite a few things, but I guess the main message here is, leak detection is quite complex. There are multiple technologies out there to support that complex process, but it really is no silver bullet. You need to understand that, we need to bring in multiple technologies to solve a problem. Your system is not going to be the same as everybody else's. So, don't if you buy or invest in a technology, it won't solve all your problems on its own. I guess that's the key message that I have.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'd like to really emphasize is the human intervention piece,
Hmm.
because technology is great. It's definitely helping us be more efficient in our operations, but in terms of leak detection is kind of an art. We still need to have that human ear on the ground to validate the technology. So if you are investing in any type of technology, just understand that you need to have somebody that's trained to actually pinpoint the leak, or to bring in a third party to do that for you if you don't have the resources. But that is a critical piece to leak detection, because nobody wants to have a dry hole. So that's definitely one of the key takeaways that I'd emphasize.
Okay. And of course, as part of that, if you have questions and if you're looking for an expert and somebody to trust, find your local Ferguson operation and give them a call, or
Yeah.
track Emma down because
Track me down.
she's not hard to track down and ask the
Oh,
questions, right?
yeah, correct. I am happy to answer any questions, and that's what I'm all about, sharing my
Right.
experience as much as I can.
Yeah, and you do a great job of it. I truly do
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time you spent with us,
Yeah, I
folks.
appreciate it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just said I appreciate you
Oh, I'm
having me
sorry.
on.
I'm sorry. I spoke over you, and I apologize for
No,
that.
you're fine.
I had that tension. Well, I'm okay. I don't know if I'm fine. I'll do an inventory later. Maybe I'll have to call an expert in to do some ground
There you
truthing.
go.
Um, Folks, I truly appreciate you taking the time to spend what we've shared today. Again, as I said, I hope you've learned something from this. I think there was an awful lot of information. Obviously, you can listen to the podcast again. Um, Emma has been a great resource, and I truly do appreciate her being with us and sharing so openly about her perspectives on the water industry and the management of these natural resources that are so critical to humans and quality of life and economic development, which are so oftentimes ignored or neglected. It's a problem we're working on. It's a problem we need to work together on, and it's nice to have somebody like Emma and Ferguson engaged and pushing the envelope to see that we, in effect, to emphasize we can do better, and we can do better with your help. And so go forth and be prosperous, go forth and make change. And at the end of the day, I hope you found this to be a valuable time invested in your personal career. Until the next time.